Brigadier Atlenda Mate is giving a press briefing. It just obviously follows the inquest docket that had been confirmed as a 41-year-old man allegedly had been shot and killed outside a filling station in Brakpan yesterday. Let's just quickly take a listen in.
The docket into Emmanuel Mbense's death, into his murder. You'll recall that Emmanuel Mbense was killed and his body dumped into a dam in Duduza. Now, what we know is that there were 12 persons of interest that both IPID and SABC have identified as being behind the murder of Emmanuel Mbense. And Wiandre Pretorius was one of those that was identified as a person of interest, together with witness D. What is of concern and of interest is that of those 12, 8 are still alive. Wiandre, we now know that Wiandre committed suicide last night, but 3 others were killed assassination style. The first one was killed in March 2023, also at a filling station, execution style. The second one, October 2025, and the third one, being witness D, was also killed assassination style outside his home. Actually, the October 2025 person of interest was also killed at his home in October 2025. So the question is, are we dealing with a syndicate that is eliminating each other in relation to the Emmanuel Mbense murder? So that is what our detectives are probing. Are we dealing with a syndicate that is eliminating each other in terms of their role and involvement in the murder of Emmanuel Mbense? So that is an aspect that we are looking at. And then in relation to Wiandre Pretorius was a person of interest in the murder of witness D. He was actually the first person of interest that we took in for questioning. We had seized his firearms as well as cell phones that are still in police custody or possession for further investigation. That particular investigation is still ongoing, and it is at an advanced stage. We won't comment further on that, but it's safe to say that our Gauteng detectives are still on the ground investigating that particular incident. So Wiandre Pretorius was one of 2 persons of interest right after witness D was murdered that was taken into questioning, and certain items seized, such as firearms and cell phones. So we are investigating the attempted hit on Wiandre Pretorius that allegedly took place outside his home on Thursday, which is a matter that he reported, that there was a hit on his life. Our ballistics experts took the necessary evidence and they are examining it. And at a later stage, we will then provide feedback on how far that investigation is. But in terms of this particular incident, this latest incident, we are investigating, and we have registered an inquest docket into the suicide of Wiandre Pretorius.
2 quick questions from me. He shot himself apparently in front of his partner. This is Joan Marie Extien, who's also a police sergeant who was named at the Madlanga Commission. Do you see a link in terms of her being with him in his final moments? Of course, she was his fiancée. And whether you've also been able to establish which weapon he used to commit suicide yesterday, if, as you say, all of his weapons have been confiscated by police.
Well, I can confirm that from what we have gathered, his wife was on the scene. We are told that there was an argument between himself and his wife before he pulls the trigger on himself. We are still investigating what could they have been arguing about. But
has she been approached yet for, it's obviously fresh and traumatic, has she been approached for questioning?
Well, I cannot really identify the people that are named or identified in the IPID report yet before they are arrested and appear in court.
No, I meant on the back of the suicide yesterday. If she was with him, has she been questioned about the events of last night?
Well, absolutely. Our detectives were on the ground. They did engage with her. They took a statement together with the friend that they were with last night. But in terms of the iPad report, I think by the end of this week or in the coming few days, iPad will shed more light. Together with iPad, we will shed more light on who the 8 remaining persons of interest are. But I can assure you that arrests are imminent because iPad has finalized their case. We are working closely with them. We are also investigating that particular murder case. We already have, on that particular case, we've got 2 members, current serving members that have already been served with the notices of intended suspension already. The National Commissioner has signed off those notices. They've already been notified. I cannot really identify who they are, but I think at a later stage, once these processes have been finalized, we can then identify who they are. But I think in the coming few days, we may see possible arrests, possible developments into the case of Emmanuel Mbenze. Like we've indicated, the docket was handed over to the Director of Public Prosecutions for a decision, and based on that decision, we will then start seeing developments into that particular case.
Just for clarity, was Mr. Pretorius a crime intelligence informer or police reservist?
Okay. From our records, Wiandre Pretorius was a police reservist. He served between 2012 and 2018, and he thereafter resigned. So he was not an active reservist. He is a former reservist of the South African Police Service.
You said you're investigating a possible syndicate here with people, or rather these security players taking out each other. We were told that there's a hit list as well. Of the names of those who were implicated at the Madlanga Commission. Is SABC aware of this? Are they investigating this?
Well, I can't go into detail on that, but police are out there doing their work. We are working closely with the Madlanga Commission on any security threat. So I won't go into detail on that or touch on that particular aspect. But safe to say is that threat and risk assessments are continuously being conducted on all those who have a role to play at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. And it's quite important that we also highlight that Wiandre Pretorius was not a witness, nor was he going to be called by the Commission to testify. His name was only mentioned by Witness D at the Commission.
But there seems to be a lot of sensitivity around this Emmanuel Mbenze case, right? What we're seeing already, 2 people who were taken out, and now Mr. Pretorius committing suicide. This surely is a concern, and to require more experienced resources from SABC.
No, absolutely, and that is why we are limiting all information, because a lot of hard work has been put into that case. Both iPad and SABC have been working tirelessly, quietly, patiently to piece evidence together, because like I've indicated, it cannot be a coincidence that 3 of the 12 identified in the iPad report are then killed execution style. You know, the first being March 2023, October 2025, and December 2025. So our detectives are hard at work in linking all these cases, or determining if there is a possible linkage to all these murders.
Has SABC interviewed everyone, identified the 12 people you speak about? Because we understand there are those who were working in EMPD before who are now in hiding. Some have even left the Gauteng province as well.
Look, remember, I don't speak for iPad, but it is an iPad case, and we have been receiving regular briefings from iPad. The National Commissioner did meet with the investigators of iPad, and they have briefed him accordingly that a lot of detective work has gone into this Emmanuel Mbenze's case. Hence the finalization of the investigation, and the docket is now with the Director of Public Prosecutions for a decision.
Has Wiandre Pretorius been investigated independently by the police?
I did make mention that he was a person of interest in the Witness D murder, and hence few days later, a week after witness D was murdered, he was actually the first person of interest that was taken into custody for questioning, where his firearms were seized, as well as some of items, your cell phones were seized for further investigation. So I can confirm that there was an investigation on his involvement in that particular matter. But also, like I've indicated, he was one of the 12 identified as having had played a role in the murder of Emmanuel Mbense.
Well, I'm talking about beyond the Mbense matter, beyond the testimony of witness D. Was Wiandre Pretorius ever investigated?
Well, I would have to get a briefing from Gauteng Police, because he was a reservist attached to Gauteng SABC. So I would have to get just a briefing on whether there were prior investigations into his involvement into other crimes, perhaps.
You can confirm that he was a person of interest in the killing of witness D.
I'm saying that for the fourth time, I'm sure, Calvin. Like I've indicated, I will repeat again that according to our investigations and the head of detectives in this particular province, he was the first person of interest that was taken in for questioning by police right after witness D was murdered, and items such as your cell phones, his firearms were seized for further investigation and analysis and so on. And I can confirm that the investigation into the death of witness D is at advanced stage. Police are still piecing together evidence and gathering more information so that we ensure that when we are ready to go to court, then we will effect the necessary arrests.
Do we know the type of car the person was driving?
Which person?
The kind of a car that Wiandre Pretorius was driving when he arrived here.
Well, we know there was an Amarok and a red car last night, but all that is under investigation. Like I've indicated, we have CCTV footage from the owner of the garage that we are analyzing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Atlanta Mate.
Thank you very much. That was Brigadier Atlanta Mate. She speaks for the South African Police Service National. She is explaining to SABC News on what really transpired. She is saying that indeed Wiandre Pretorius was a person of interest. You would remember that he was implicated on the Madlanga Commission, being implicated by witness D. We are still here on the crime scene, but I can tell you that the crime scene is not active anymore. Police officers did manage to gather evidence, and now the scene has been cleared. Brigadier Mate explaining to SABC viewers that there's a lot that needs to be investigated on this matter, and police have been gathered. There is a team that has been established to deal with the matter. Atlanta Mate confirming to SABC News that indeed Wiandre Pretorius, a 41-year-old, was a police reservist according to their records.
And Calvin, we are going to continue with this. It's just a touch after 9 a.m. You're watching the agenda. Thank you so much. That's our reporter working that story for us. And as you know, at this moment, Calvin Dludla has just brought us that briefing there by the police spokesperson, Atlanta Mate, following this developing story this hour. What we know so far is that police have confirmed the death of a man that was implicated at the Madlanga Commission in what they describe as a self-inflicted incident. Now, investigations are now currently underway to determine the full circumstances surrounding his death at this point in time. Now, this development also comes against the backdrop of those serious allegations. You know, the man had been implicated by a police sergeant who testified under the name Witness D, who's since been identified as Marius van der Merwe, who was slain just this past month in connection with the murder of a man. Now, police have also confirmed that he was previously identified as a person of interest and was the first individual taken in for questioning during earlier investigations, including those probes into the killing of the witnesses. This also raised concerns around the sequence of events leading up to his death. As you also heard there, the police spokesperson, Atlanta Mate, saying that They are also at this point just looking at whether this is not a crime syndicate that is working on the basis of eliminating each other at this particular point in time. And just days earlier, as you may recall there, this is a person that also survived a targeted attack outside his Boksburg home, and this is where his vehicle was shot at multiple times. And what we understand right now is that investigators are now examining whether there is any link that incident and what followed in the early hours of this morning. As you can see now, it seems like life is simply going on in that petrol station in which this incident happened, where you can see what looks like a forecourt worker there who is now removing the sand as well as, cleaning what marked the final moments of Wiandre Pretorius there.